Hello everyone, welcome to the Goravel video series. In this series, we are going to build TaskFlow, which is a multi-user task management API. So the goal of this series is to learn the basics of Goravel by building something real and practical. So before writing any code, let me quickly walk you through the database design of our system. So in this project, we will have three main tables: users, tasks, and notifications. This table will store all the users of the system. It contains basic fields like name, an email, password, and a role. So in our system, a user can have two roles. One is member and another is manager. So we will use this role column to implement a simple role-based authorization system. For example, a manager can create, edit, or delete tasks, and a member can only update the task status. Next is task table. This stores the main information about a task, like title, description, and a status. A task can have three possible states like pending, in progress, or done. And this table also has two relationship with users table. Created by, which represents the user who created the task, and second assigned to, which represents the user responsible for completing the task. Finally, we have a notifications table. So whenever something changes in a task, we will send a notification to the user. So these notifications will be stored in this table. It has fields like message, read at, and here read at column can be null, which means the user has not seen the notification yet. And a high level here is, so a user can have multiple tasks, a user can have multiple tasks assigned to it, and a user can have multiple notifications. Okay, alright, now let's move to the terminal. So before creating a Goravel project, we need to make sure that Go is installed on our system. You can check your Go version by running Go version. As you can see, I have Go 1.26 installed on my machine. So for this project, we will use Goravel 1.17, which requires at least Go 1.23. So if Go is not installed or your version is lower, just go to golang.org and download the latest version. The installation only takes a couple of minutes. So just go to golang.org and grab latest compiler. Next, Goravel also provides a CLI installer similar to the Laravel installer. This makes it much easier to create new Goravel project. To install it, let's run go install github.com Goravel installer Goravel and latest version. Once the installation finishes, let's just verify it. You can verify it by running Goravel. So as you can see in my system, Goravel installer 1.17 is installed. So if everything is set up correctly, you should see help message. If you get an error like command not found, it usually means that Go binary directory is not in your path. To fix that, add this line to your shell configuration like export path $path $go env and go path bin directory in your shell configs. Then restart your terminal and try running the command again. It should work. Now Goravel installer provide a new command to create a new application. Now let's create our project. So run Goravel new. This starts an interactive setup. So first it's asking for project name. Let's name it to TaskFlow. Now it's asked which version you want to install. So starting from Goravel v1.17, a slimmer project skeleton was introduced. The full version installs all the facades, while the Goravel Lite lets us choose only the ones we need. So for this project, we will choose Goravel Lite. Let's hit enter. Next is the module name. So this is the name used in your Go mode file. So usually it matches your repository name. So we will set this to TaskFlow for now. It now clones Goravel projects to your TaskFlow directory and install all dependencies. Now, since we have selected Goravel Lite, the installer now asks which facade we want to install. Let's quickly select the facades. So let's quickly select facades which we want. We will need route to define API routes. We will need auth for user authentication. We will need cache for caching support. We will need DB for database access. We will need get for authorization rules. We will need hash for hashing password. We will need HTTP for request and response handling. We will need a log for application logging. Also need a ORM for database query. Then we will need quick queue for background jobs. Then we will need schema for database migration. That's all for now. Let's hit enter. Next, we need to select the cache driver. So Goravel provides two options, memory and Redis. The memory driver stores data inside application process, but the data is lost when the server restarts. And Redis stores the cache inside a separate Redis server, which is more reliable. So for this project, we will choose Redis. Next is the session driver. So sessions allows us to store user information between requests. Goravel supports file and Redis. The file driver stores session in application files, and the Redis driver stores session inside Redis. Since we are already using Redis, we will choose Redis here as well. You can choose file driver also. Next, we need to choose the route driver. Goravel currently supports Gin and Fiber. Both are high performance HTTP frameworks for Go. So Gin is very popular and widely used, and Fiber is inspired by the Express.js. For this project, we will go with Gin, but you can choose Fiber also. It won't change the Goravel code much. So let's select Gin. Next, we need to select a database driver. So Goravel supports multiple databases like Postgres, MySQL, SQL Server, SQLite. For this tutorial, we will use Postgres because it's reliable, widely used, and works very well for production systems. However, you could choose another database if you prefer it. Next, we choose the queue driver. So queues allows us to process tasks in the background, like sending notifications. So Goravel supports sync, database, and Redis driver. The sync driver runs job immediately in the same process. The database driver stores job in the database table, and Redis driver stores job in Redis and process them using background workers. Since Redis is fast and commonly used for queues, we will select Redis. Now that the installation is finished, let's take a quick look at the project structure. So let's open up the project. So if you have used Laravel before, this structure will feel very familiar. For example, your app directory contains the main application logic. This is where we will create things like controllers, models, jobs, and services. And this folder also provides facades. So Goravel install all your facades as a local facade so that you can name it according to your need also. You can also add new facades here. So most of the time our development will happen inside this folder only. So next is Bootstrap. This folder contains the application startup configuration. For example, registering service providers, configuring routes, or registry migrations. So all of these will be configured in bootstrap app.go. And next is config directory. So this directory contains configuration files for all the installed facades. So most of the time we won't change these files directly. Instead, we will configure using environment variables provided by Goravel config files in .env file. Like for example, configuring database connections, configuring Redis connections. Next is routes directory. This directory contains API routes. So this is where we define endpoint exposed by the application. So currently it only has web.go, but we will create new files here in next videos. And finally, we have main.go in root folder. This is the entry point of the application. It starts Goravel server using configuration defined in bootstrap.boot method. Okay, cool. Next, since we selected Postgres and Redis when we were setting the application, so we need running instances of both. So if you already have them installed locally, you can skip this step. Otherwise, we will run them using Docker. So Goravel already have one Docker compose file. So let's just add Postgres and Redis services inside it. So let's add Postgres. We are going to use Postgres 15 Alpine image. Next, it should restart always. Then environment variables. We are going to configure Postgres env variables. For example, Postgres db. So let's name it TaskFlow. Postgres user Goravel. Postgres password. Postgres password for now. Let's update the ports mapping. So in my locally, I already have one Postgres instance running on port 5432. So I will map 5433 port to Docker Postgres container port 5432. If you don't have any running instance, then just map it to 5432 only. Here, this is port on your local machine, and this is port inside the container. So when we connect to 5433 port locally, it forwards traffic to Postgres inside the container. Next, we are going to use volumes. So this is basically a Docker volume. So volumes allow us to persist data outside the containers. So even if the container stops or is recreated, the database data will still remain. So let's name it Postgres data and use what Postgres SQL and data. You can use other path also. Let's similarly define Redis service also. So image we are going to use Redis Alpine. Then restart policy will be always. Then ports mapping. So similar to Postgres, I also have one running instance at port 6379. So I will map 6380 of my local machine to 6379 of container port. You can have only 6380 if next let's define volumes for Redis also. Redis data. And then volumes, all the defined volumes inside our services, Postgres data and Redis data. Okay, cool. Since our Docker Compose is ready, now let's start the containers. So let's open the terminal. Let's change our working directory to the application folder, TaskFlow. Since we will be running Goravel server on our locally, we don't need a Goravel services in Docker for now. So let's just remove it for now. And now let's start the container. So open up your terminal and run docker compose up command and -d. So here the D flag means detached mode, which runs container in the background. So let's hit enter. Okay, so it has created two container. One is TaskFlow and Redis. So it has created two container, one for Postgres and one for Redis. We can verify everything by running docker ps. As you can see, we have container running on port assigned defined on docker compose file. Okay, let's clear it up. Now let's use these configurations in our .ini file so that we can connect the. Okay, so Redis host will be same. Password, we didn't define any password inside docker compose, and our port will be 6380. Next db host will be localhost. Basically db host will be localhost, port will be 5433, database will be TaskFlow, username will be Goravel, and password will be password. Whatever you have defined inside your docker compose file will go in .ini file. Okay, now let's start the Goravel server. To run the Goravel server, just run go run dot. It will automatically pick main.go. Now we were able to successfully connect Redis here, and by default the server runs on port 3000. So let's click on it and see if it works. Okay, so if everything is configured correctly, you see the Goravel welcome page here. Let's go back to our ID and stop the server by using Ctrl C on Linux and Command C on Mac OS. So before ending this video, one more thing worth mentioning, that Goravel provides an artisan command system similar to Laravel. You can see all the commands by running go run dot artisan. So see, there are db commands, there are make commands, there are migration commands, and all other commands also. So these commands helps with things like generating code, running migrations, and managing the applications. So we will use many of these commands in upcoming videos. Alright, that's it for this video. In next video we will start the TaskFlow API step by step. So see you in the next one.